Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. So we're coming into, it's 2021 and we're coming into the end of the year. It's pretty exciting for me to be having conversations about all kinds of things pleasure related and looking forward into the new year and looking at different things about how would you like to start your new year? And so one of the thoughts I had was maybe people would like some relationship coaching this year. Maybe they haven't had any before. Maybe this is a good year for it, but how do you pick a coach? So today's topic is all about the top tips for choosing a relationship coach. I kind of ran down some ideas. I have, I think, about 11, 12, maybe 30 ideas for you. So stick around and listen to that. For those of you who wonder, why would I know that? I actually am a sex and intimacy coach and also a relationship coach. I also work with people with their bodies related to health. So I'm a holistic health practitioner, and I work with many different avenues when it comes to holistic health. So that is a big and broad conversation on my expertise and experience in the field of bodies, health, and pleasure. So this is why I have a show, and this is what I am here to talk to you about on a weekly basis, every Monday night, live from Inspired Choices Network. I come on to talk to you guys about pleasure, sex, bodies, health, all of that jazz. Now, some things that I think when I look for coaches, I look for certain things. I look for in their life, are they walking their walk and talk, are they walking their talk and talking their walk and all that jazz? And I also look at, in their life, the field of expertise that they talk about, how well are they implementing the tools that they talk about? So you find, I find on things like Instagram and Facebook and all these different social media platforms, you can see a lot of coaches talking about different tips and tools. And then my curiosity is how much are they living them? So you can't always find that out unless you're kind of nosy and looking into people's lives, or if they're like me, they're on the internet having a podcast talking about their life. So then you can actually listen in and hear what I've got to say about that. And how do you trust that? That is all coming down to your gut and just seeing how you trust that. So let's look at some top tips in general for choosing a good relationship coach. And some of these also will coincide with coaches in general for you. So if you're not really interested in a relationship coach by the end of this conversation, you might feel compelled to jump in and get yourself a personal coach or a business coach. And if you are, there are so many coaches on Inspired Choices Network that you can connect with. There are many, many different business coaches and personal coaches. I happen to be a sex and intimacy and relationship coach. So you can find any and all of us for different fields of expertise. So one of the things when it comes to relationship coaching is the top thing to me is when you look at a relationship, it's good to know, for example, in your life, who are you struggling having the relationship with? So relationship coaching doesn't mean that it's coaching just to do with a sexual partner. This is, you can have relationship coaching for you and your children, for you and your spouse, for you and your parents, for you and your business partners. Relationship coaching falls into many categories. Actually, when I was a nanny, the lady that I worked for, her and her partner, they had a business together at one time. And when they were breaking up their partnership, they actually went to relationship counseling, because in the early 90s, coaching and coaching titles weren't as popular. They were out there, but they weren't as prolific as they are everywhere, and it wasn't that as easy to find as it is now. So they found a relationship counselor to actually assist them with the breakup and dissolution of the business. So they went through it as if it was like a divorce. And so they honored the relationship that way. And I always thought that was like a brilliant way to handle things. So coaching can be not necessarily to have an improved relationship, but sometimes it's like to be able to have an amicable breakup, or to be able to resolve a relationship or dissolve a relationship so that you can move forward and everybody has said their bit and worked forward on that. And I think that's a beautiful kind of thing. And it's, to me, it's such a respectful way to approach it as well. So one of the things I would look for in terms of a coach with, when I say this about relationships, why I'm saying this is because you might find that, say you have a business partner that's the same gender as you, but in your love life, you might have somebody who's a different gender than you. So if you're going for like coaching to do with your business partner, you might want to choose a coach that is also the same gender as you. Do you catch my drift? So whatever the situation is, you might want to look at whoever you're having the issue with. You might want to choose a coach that is that same gender, so that you have kind of a different perspective in a safe way from the gender that you're having the difficulty with. So say, for example, I get a lot of heterosexual men who come to me for coaching. It's kind of like the people that I draw in. And I also end up having a lot of women who are working through relationships with their mothers. And on a smaller occasion, I have women working through relationships with men. It's probably in a lot of ways because I don't really experience or see gender as very binary, and I don't really see and experience myself as binary. So I, even though I appear binary, so just the way that we appear. However, in terms of coaching, it would be really good to kind of feel that out for you. And I was thinking about this from a perspective of, say, for example, if you're transgender, now you might want to actually pick a relationship coach who is transgender or is in relationship with somebody who's transgender, so that you have somebody who's got some experience in that area, or that can relate in that area, or you can relate to them as well. So I think inviting in an energy that maybe you're not so comfortable with, in order for you to be able to look at and process that, is helpful. So that was one of my ideas there. I was like, well, let's look at the gender of the person that you're having maybe the desire to have relationship coaching with and for, and choose coaching or a coach that matches that. They might also just energetically match that. So I can very easily energetically match male energy. So I can quite easily feel out the perspective of men, which is partly why men have an easier time talking to me, because I can quite easily relate to them and understand their perspectives and be able to coach from that perspective. I think it's a weird and interesting gift that I have. So it's kind of cool. And you might feel like you would like a coach that's different than that. It's just one of my many tips and tools. So look at that as an option. Now, number two is that you might want to have a coach that specializes in your needs. Just like I was saying earlier, like if you're looking for a business coach, then you might want to specifically look at somebody who does business coaching. But even within the realm of business coaching, that's a pretty wide umbrella. So you might want to look at certain things in business, like marketing coaches, or financial coaches, or idea like creation coaches within the business realm too. And then that's true also within the relationship coaching world too. There are these relationship coaching is a broad umbrella, and then within that you have things like sex and intimacy coaching, and you'll have other specialized niche markets within that. So it's good to know, like, what is it you require, back in the day, I think one of the very first people that I interviewed, it was within the first 2 months of starting the show in 2014, I interviewed a woman who specialized in masturbation coaching. So this is how niche you can get, is that you might actually find somebody who is so specific that they are not just a sex and intimacy coach, they're specifically a sex coach in that they coach masturbation. How amazing is that? I think it's an incredible thing. You can also have coaching for, and one of the other people that I interviewed very early on as well was somebody who is a coach for sex and aging. So she works primarily with people who are 55 and over and with aging bodies and how they operate differently. So what I've come to know in my experience is that I actually have a niche of working with people who have experienced traumas, whether they're aware of it or not, and those traumas have affected their current relationships, and those current relationships are usually ones that they are looking at improving. They're usually not people who are trying to walk away from a relationship. They're usually people who are looking at improving the relationship they're in. So when you know that and you can kind of observe that in yourself, it's cool that you can go, oh, you know what I actually know about me is that I seem to attract people who have gone through a lot of trauma. Why? Because I've actually experienced it myself, come out of it, and I'm in the other end of it. So I've worked with coaches, and I've worked with healers, and I've worked with many different types of ways to be able to get myself to that other side of it, so that I don't have to be living as a victim. I'm living as a thriver. And I would say that that's one of the things that I would want to know about a coach if I was hiring a coach, is like, what have you gone through that makes you an expert in this? So a lot of the stories I share on this show is so that you can get to know me. So you can get to know me and like, why do I share these stories other than I like talking about myself? Not so much. It's actually so you can get to know me and get to see that this is where I came from, this is where I'm at now, and these are some of the tools I've used in my life to be able to move forward and have a different life than, say, a lot of people who maybe, if I had never gone through any of this coaching, I may be stuck in a rut, and I may be actually stuck in trauma. I know that because I work with a lot of people who are my age or older who have experienced traumas and are still in trauma cycles. So I have worked in many different aspects of looking at different ways to work with trauma. I've taken a lot of different courses and things on that as well, so that I can work with people who have experienced trauma and start to recover themselves. And so that is kind of like within the niche of sex and intimacy, that is kind of my niche. Not that I chose that niche consciously, it's the niche chose me. So that's something that I know about me. And although I have worked on occasion with people who have experienced no trauma, but maybe have a partner who has experienced trauma and they don't really know how to relate to their partner. So I have worked with partners of people who have had trauma as well. So look at what you're looking for. I do get approached by people sometimes who are looking for something that's not exactly what is my field of expertise that I offer professionally. For example, like I do get approached by people who are looking for like sex coaching, like live sex coaching, couples who are asking for advice in that way, but it's actually not coaching they're looking for. What they're actually asking for is for me to be in a threesome. So as a coach, from a coaching perspective, I gauge these things out pretty fast and can figure out, even though I might let you chat a lot, I will figure it out pretty quickly that what your actual target is. So I'm sure that there are people who offer that, but they're probably not coming from a coaching perspective. They may be somatic sexual body workers, they may be surrogate sexual partners, and there may be a lot of other avenues that they're working on and through. They may be dominatrixes or different types of BDSM play where they invite you as a couple in for play and you pay them. You pay them for this, right? So I think that's the difference, is that this is coming from a professional standpoint rather than just a playful, trying to get it for free standpoint. So for people who do write to me, if you do listen to this show, and I'm actually creating this show so that when I do get these connections from people who are contacting me, that I'm going to direct them to this show so they can listen to it and know that as a professional, this is the way that I approach my work. So now that you know that, I do have several references though for people who do work in other ways. So if that is something that you need, I can connect you, but that doesn't mean that that's my field of expertise. Even though you can send me all the dick pics you want, that doesn't mean you're going to entice me, just an FYI. But thank you. So I wrote a few notes down, so I'm just doing a little reference to my notes, but I'm going to refer to these notes a little more here they are, while I head to commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight, I'm talking about some tips that you can use in choosing relationship coaches, whether that's me or somebody else. These are some things to just keep in mind when choosing a relationship coach. I may actually write an article about this in the next few weeks, just so that there's some things like maybe a checklist. Check, 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 check. This person actually fits for me. So I think that's a great thing to do. It's great to know too, from the coaching perspective, whether the client works for you as well. So that will be another show that I'll be doing, is tips and tools for coaches on whether your clients fit for you. So sometimes they don't, and that's okay. You don't have to say yes to everybody who enters your door. And I learned that the hard way, and I'm willing to give you guys the easy lesson. I get it too, when you're first starting out your business, you just like want to say yes to everybody and be like, yeah, I can do that. Sure. I can jump off of an airplane for you for this much money. Yeah, sure. And then you're like, yeah, no, I'm not choosing that anymore. So as you usually start to get more acquainted with your business and yourself and your expertise, because you don't necessarily know your expertise off the bat, but as you become more aware of it, there are certain things where you're like, yeah, this isn't my expertise. I'm going to pass you along to somebody whose expertise this is. And then you can see if you're a fit. So maybe that will be another show. I'm going to make note to do a show for coaches to see, for relationship coaches to see, is there a fit? There in my notes, that's what I just wrote. So now the other one is regarding things like understanding where you're coming from. So like would be good to have a coach who can perceive your perspective. That doesn't mean they have to agree with your perspective, but having them be able to be willing to be with you and be present with you while you give information about your perspective. And what's important is that that's your perspective. And so that's acknowledging your values, your points of view, your experience, and also being willing to show you where you can maybe tweak some of those things so that you can have even greater in your life. Where sometimes we might have some values and we're just like, no, that doesn't work for me. And maybe it's not even our values, it's some other values that we've been taught in our life, but they actually don't work for us and they've been limiting on us. So to have a coach that can kind of be able to perceive that in you, go, okay, so this is what you've been talking about. Now, does this match who you are? And sometimes just hearing yourself say these things out loud can get you to go, well, actually, those are not my values. Those are some values that I learned about in Sunday school, but they're not my values. Interesting. So having somebody who can assist you to actually figure out what your value system is and what you do value in relationship, like what's valuable to you, is somebody who brings you presence important to you. So I like to take my work from a lot of my favorites, and it just depends on the moment and like what's coming up, what resources I might pull from. So some value systems, I could look at a variety of different methods of looking at values and see, and establish with somebody what their value system is in order for them to go, oh, these are my actual values. So for a coach to be able to assist you on what your values are will also help you to be moving forward in relationship, whether that's choosing into the relationship you're in or choosing a different one, and also having a better relationship with yourself. So that's another thing for me too, is relationship coaching is something where if your relationship coach gets that relationships start with you primarily and then moves to the next person, then you're in good hands. So that is something that I found in my coaching courses. I found it through my healing work that I've done and that I do with people now, is that it's always come down to, you got to work on the you first to be able to share it with the rest of the world, right? So knowing what your values are, and somebody who can kind of get your values, right? So I worked with people who are very dedicated Christians, people who are very dedicated to Judaism, people who are very dedicated to Islam. And I work within their value system of what works for them in relationships in that moment. And the beauty is when you allow somebody to be with their values in that moment, sometimes their values will start to open and change, and then they can actually be open to receiving even more in relationships. But it's good to kind of get down to that and figure out what some of your values are, so that you can share that with the coach so that they can see whether they can actually work with you. And to me, like a really good coach would not have an opinion on that. They would just work with you within the context of what you require, if they're able to. So one of the other things, so I have clients who come in person, I have clients who are online, and to me, it's not any different, but for some people, it's really important to them to come in person. So I do have some clients who it's very important to them that they come in person, that they're in my office, that they get to see me physically, that they get to give me a hug at the end of the session. And it's super integral to their coaching and their progress. And that's cool. So that is something to keep in mind too, is that something that you need is that, do you require somebody to be in person with you, or are you good with online? And then do you require somebody who, gives you one-on-one, or do you require classes? Because that's another way to coach too, is coaching groups of people. I tend to do a lot more one-on-one work, although I would like to be able to, I have done teaching in the past, but not from a coaching perspective with relationships in groups yet. I've done facilitating of other classes in groups, and they do bring up relationship stuff. So That for me, though, is I'm a bit of more of an expert. I have a bit of more of an expertise in the field of one-on-one coaching with relationships, either in person or online. So, and with couples. So that's another thing. I've actually worked with couples as well. Just not so much in a big, large group of a group setting. And there are people who are very good at that work too. So if that's something you like and you want to work in groups, then I'm sure if I look through my roster, I could find people who do that work as well. And that might be something I do in the future. It's just not my jam right now. I'm one-on-one right now. So I also would want, I actually recently had somebody write me this question. Where can I go to become like a trauma coach? And I'm like, have you worked on your own trauma? Have you ever experienced any coaching yourself in this area? And have you done any body work for this? Or have you done any processing on this? Have you talked about it? And the person had done nothing, but they were just like, I just want to step in and be a coach. I'm like, whoa, back up. Back the F up. If you haven't done any of your work, you really ought to not be coaching. Just saying. Just saying. It's like, I don't even know what to make it akin to, like a doctor not actually going to medical school and learning anatomy, but just like, I just want to go in and just go do some surgery because it just sounds like fun. I don't know. But even psychotherapists, psychologists, therapists in general, if your therapist or your psychologist has not done any of their work, then I'd walk away pretty fast. So what can occur is that if you've not actually done your work, yeah, you will get triggered. So this is a really good point in the chat room, is that because you can be triggering yourself when you're coaching someone else who is triggered by their past. Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't even ever dealt with an iota of it, you are going to be in the swamps of crap of your own stuff. So that's going to also fall under my category for things for coaches, relationship coaches, to be aware of. And there are definitely people in the world who have far many more years of experience than I have. I'm not even saying that this is like that I'm somehow the most experienced relationship coach out there. No, but I do know quality, and I have been doing healing work of my own, working on myself and working with other people for now 24 years, 25 years coming up actually in July of 2022. Holy smokes, I'm like 8 months away from 25 years. That's blowing my mind, because when I started this work, I wasn't even 25. So there you go. It's like over half my life has been dedicated to healing work and contributing to bodies as energy work and coaching in different ways and facilitating. So kind of mind-blowing. So I would want to know what has my coach done in their own life? What have they done experientially? So sometimes on your website, that information might be included in a biography or something like that. For me, it's included in my podcast. If you listen to my shows, you'll hear my testimonials of my own life and what I've gone through. And on occasion, it's really funny. I actually get a lot of testimonials, and I'm not one of those people who collects testimonials. So I don't like stick them all over my website, which maybe I should, as it is something that people do tend to look for. So in my own experience, so most I would say 90% of my clientele come from word of mouth. And most of my testimonials are verbally said to me on the phone, or on video. So I might just for fun put something out there to everybody who's ever worked with me who feels like giving me a testimonial. I might give them like a little 15-minute something for fun as a gift for a testimonial, even though I get them literally, like I think I got 3 today. Like I just don't even think about it. It's a weird thing. I don't even know what to say about that, but I do realize that's crazy. And I do get that I'm really, really grateful and really lucky that I have so many people that do write and do give me testimonials. I think I got like 3 I love yous this week from clients too, so that's pretty beautiful. And how lucky am I, right? So I love that. So we're going to head to our next commercial break. I have a lot more tips and tools to share with you for how to pick a great relationship coach for you. So stay tuned in. You are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. So for those of you who have never had coaching from me, what you waiting for? I don't know. But if you have had coaching with me, then you'll know that I drive and derive a lot of pleasure from just contributing to people and getting a smile on their face and getting them moving forward and watching things improve in their life. I think I like walk around the house cheering and my family just laughs at me. I'm like, yay, another like person is happy, and they're like, yay for you. So when you get me cheering for you, you get the whole house cheering for you, even when they don't know you. I'll just be like, so-and-so's, I won't even say it. I'll be just like, so-and-so, I talked to somebody today and they're happy. Yay. And they're like, yay for whoever you're talking about. I'm like, yep. So it's fun to me that I anything that gets me up and enthusiastic is exciting. And I think that's something to look for in a coach too. Somebody who's like excited and enthusiastic to see you, and somebody who's enthusiastic to contribute more and walk grow, So that's awesome. And like having not only actually during life, like if you were in sports, you'd want somebody cheering you on as a cheerleader, but you'd also want a really good coach, right? So you kind of want a little bit of both in your coach. Coaches sometimes cheer you on too, but isn't it nice to also have a whole level of cheerleading going on as well? So one of the things that we talked about last was that, looking for a coach that's got some experience behind them. And how do you gain experience? Well, you do gain experience a little bit at a time. So there are, you could have a relationship coach that doesn't have a lot of experience, and they can be very good at what they do as well. Why? Because they have done a lot of their own work, and they are probably bringing tools from a lot of their own experience to the table. So even though they might have just gotten out of training, they probably could still be they could probably be good if they've got all this other stuff behind them, just as much as you could have a coach who's got 30 or 40 years behind them, but never dealt with their own stuff, but they just got tools and they're just spouting stuff off, but they don't have any. It's like, if you don't have proof behind your tools, or you haven't lived them, then what are you doing? And to me, having like a vast number of tools that I can draw from, as one of my BFs says, is like I have like trailer loads of tools, and I really do have like trailer truckloads of tools. And then it's like I throw tools together and invent a new one when I can gather them up. I think that's a really good thing to have, is somebody who can draw on multiple different ways of approaching things, because not every one way is the correct and only way. For example, I do have, like last week, or actually, no, I didn't say that. I don't remember what show that was for, but anyway, there are, I've worked with people to the level of like, their thing isn't necessarily talking about stuff. So what I end up doing is I get them to do art pieces, and then they might write about them, or they might write stories about themselves. And then, so there's so many ways to approach it. Just finding tools that work for the person that you're working with. So when I work with people, their sessions are very tailored to them and what their needs and requirements are, and where and how they're going to get the most out of the sessions. So how do you get that is from somebody who's got some training and education and experience behind them. So that's something you want to know too, is what is your training? What's your experience? What's your expertise? How long you've been doing this? Like how many, what have you studied? What are your results? Who, do you have any people that I can talk to about this? And that's where maybe my testimonials could come in handy, is that I could just be like, yeah, go refer to my testimonials if you like. So all really good things to know. And it's not necessarily like the name of the institute that the person trained with or whatever. It's to know that they've had some training, that they've got some tools, that you've worked with some people, or that your coaching actually had you do some like test people while you were doing your training. So you worked with people already is really good as well. And so lots of different things to look for in a coach, for sure. And specifically in relationship coaching. And then another one is like, I actually have this on my intake forms for my holistic health side of the practice. I ask people how they feel about the investment that they're putting into their health. And I find that it's one of my most interesting questions that I have, where I'll ask people how concerned they are about their health, how much pain they're in, how concerned they are about their health, and then how concerned they are about the cost of sessions. I actually ask that on purpose because it gives me a really good insight into where they're at in terms of where they're at financially, like where their mind is at, where they're at in terms of how much they're willing to invest in themselves and in their healing process, and what their expectation level is. So those three questions, oftentimes there's a huge disparity between them, where they're 10, like a high level 10 concerned about their health. Like super concerned about their health. And then you might have them like 0 concern about money. And sometimes they'll have like a number 2 on their concern about health, but a number 10 on the concern about cost of sessions. So it's fascinating. And that question appears way before you even see the rate that I do my work at. And I find it fascinating that it's like people kind of come in with this maybe grandiose expectation that I'm going to charge bazillions of dollars or something. Maybe I need to charge more because people have stress over the money. I don't know. So looking at your budget, being realistic about this. Yes, it's important to invest in yourself. Absolutely. We invest in ourselves in so many ways, whether it's, putting a roof over our heads so that you can have warmth and comfort, or having a vehicle, or having clothing, or, going to the spa, or doing some things like massage and body work and energy work and health work. And coaching is another way to invest in yourself. And there's so many ways to invest in yourself. So when you're investing in yourself, you want to include that in your budget as well. And we have a great financial advisors on here. Financially Speaking is a great show, and she does talk about things like budgets and all that. So you could listen to her show on that. And I would include, if she hasn't already talked about this, is like budgeting for your health, because budgeting for your health, your welfare, and your spiritual growth, and your pleasure. We often forget pleasure in that, and then we give ourselves like a lot of stress, and all we have is stress. So I think it would be fun to include in your life and in your budgeting is how to budget in pleasure. And maybe Kathy Cook Noble will do a show for that for us if she hasn't already. So we'll send her a note on that. Hopefully she'll get that in. So what are some things you can budget for pleasure? It can be super small and super easy. And when I'm talking about budgeting for your coaching, is to look at like, okay, so maybe you have $100 set aside for coaching, but your coach charges $150 a session. So maybe you get, into coaching once every 6 weeks instead of once a month, or maybe your budget for your coaching is $1,000 a month. It's also cool if you're a professional to find out from any companies that you work for whether they back coaching as well, because there are quite a few companies now that offer professionals these like wellness care packages that they have just a budget for that, and then they get reimbursed. So, and I know we have that in Canada. I don't know if that exists in the US as well. So you can also look into the different companies you work with, whether they carry that. So, and if they don't have, if they don't happen to have that in the budget for you from that, if, relationship coaching and coaching of any kind can improve your life in ways that will add value. So, if you're looking at improving your business, getting a business coach will add value and productivity, absolutely. And if you're looking at having a coach for your relationship, you're going to also add value to your life in your relationship and the relationship you're in, or the relationship you're choosing to get out of, in order to have it be amicable or just far more graceful. So, lots of reasons to budget for and add that into your life is to budget in anything to do with coaching. I think also one of the things to look at is like, what are some of your targets, so that when you do have a budget for relationship coaching, I have somebody right now who their target was that they were going to come to me for 1 year, and that they only had one thing that they needed to agree on with their partner. And I swear this person is cracking me up to no end, because he actually loves coming, that he's choosing, I think he's choosing until the last moment to actually acknowledge that he doesn't require coming anymore. And that's really cute of him. But until then, he's like, I still need to show up. I'm like, cool, if that's what you feel like you need. But now he comes to learn stuff in a different way. So it's become quite fascinating. So, what are your targets? And your target might be simple, and you might resolve whatever it is that you'd like to resolve through your coaching within a few sessions, and it might be a year. And just really look at how much are you willing to invest in yourself and the process and whatever, and the kind of productivity you can get out of it and the kind of results you can get out of it. So look at all of those things. They're all very integral to how you will choose a coach as well. Also, think another thing before we head to commercial break is to feel like it's okay to interview coaches. Just like coaches, it's okay to interview clients. It's okay if there's no match. And I think what's fun is that, we'll interview for jobs all the time. And this is essentially the same thing. You're hiring a coach. you're hiring a coach, so you need to interview your coach, and coaches need to interview the person they're working with to see if it fits. And absolutely, your first session should be to see if it's a fit. And it doesn't have to be an hour or 2 hours. It can be pretty quick. There are some fundamental questions to ask, especially from the coach perspective of like the expectations of the person, to see if you can actually match what what they would like to get out of it. And sometimes you can't. So be honest about that. And then if you can, then give them a bit of a hint as to some of the plan that you're going to work on, because that's one of the things that I didn't do at the beginning. Was I didn't give people, I forgot to like give people a sort of outline or a plan, like, okay, so we're going to do this week, and over the next 4 or 5 sessions, these are some of the targets that we're going to work on, and this will be kind of the way that we're going to work on them. And then people have these weekly targets that they can hit, and then they feel like there's accomplishments that they've made, right? So the more I did that, the more people felt like, oh, I got something out of this, right? But sometimes when we don't have that outlined, then we look at it and we're like, I don't even know what I got from it. But from the coach watching them, you can go, wow, you've changed so much. But they're like, but I'm living it, so I don't even notice it. But when you see it outlined, you can really pick it up. Okay, so we're actually heading to our next commercial break. Holy cannolis. I do have a few more tips for you, so stick around. You're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and come back right after this break with me.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we've been talking about how to choose a relationship coach that will work for you. So I have some more tips and tools for you. Go back and listen to these. We're at tip number 9 or 10 at this point. So one of the last tips I left you off with was to feel free to interview coaches. And one of the recommends is to talk to a few coaches before, really jumping in and just choosing one, just like going like, oh, I'm just desperate, I'm going to pick this one. Talk to a few. You never know what'll show up and who will show up. And you may some people choose to work with more than one coach. Now that can be overlapping at times depending on their training and their experience and whatever. So feel it out, see what works for you. You can always choose again. And some coaches will have you get a package so that they know that you are really choosing into creating change. So don't be alarmed by that if somebody's like, here's a 1 session thing, but I highly recommend that you would have like at least 4 to 6 coaching sessions before determining like how well this is or isn't working for you. Some people will have that, and so that's not everyone, but it is some people. So I'm just mentioning that if you do come across that, that's not unusual. So one of the other things I put on my list is if they have free materials like a podcast like this one, go listen to it. There are quite a few coaches out there that have podcasts, and I would say that really a lot of the coaches who are looking to offer you as much material as they can for you to be able to choose them from a place of confidence, we'll have something out there of material that you can get, whether it's blogs, articles, blogs, or podcasts. That way you can listen to them and see. And I've had people listen to me for like years before they've contacted me and go, wow, I've been listening to your show for like 4 years, and I like heard something today, and I would really like to work with you on this. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Yeah. And then, I find that's really kind of cool, because you never know. Like, I can't see you guys out there. I don't hear you guys out there. So I don't know who's listening or what's going on. But to know that, you're utilizing this platform, you're getting this information, and then you're getting to know me and see whether my energy is, feels good to you, and whether we feel like a fit. Sometimes people can tell by listening to me whether they think I'm a fit, and sometimes it's good to just connect with me, and we'll do an interview anyway to see if I'm a fit, because sometimes what I'm saying on the show is definitely, it's definitely who I am. Like, I'm not any different right now than I am 20 minutes after I get off the show. This is just who I am. So when, for example, sometimes people think I'm saying something that I'm not saying, they're reading into it, and I'd like to be clear. So having an interview is very helpful for me to be clear on what I'm saying. When I'm talking about offering people pleasure, that doesn't mean I'm giving hand jobs 24/7. So it's different. I need you to be understand that and be clear as well. And when you work with me, it's different than that. So, and that's not always true for everyone. So it's like, if that's not true for everyone, then maybe find a coach that does work for you and will give you hand jobs. And if I did just say 23/7, yeah, it's because my husband says it backwards in our house all the time, and he'll say 7/24, and then we'll say 23/7, and like we'll just mix it up because we're all wacko. So yes, see if you can gather and grab any materials that the coach you're interested in has available, whether you're following them on Instagram or whatever. Most of my information comes through this, through Inspired Choices Network, and then goes out to all these platforms, over 200 platforms, for you to be able to connect with me. The stuff I offer on Instagram and Facebook is, I don't offer a lot up there. I prefer you to just come on in and listen, and let your friends know too. So one of the things I find is that, like I was saying earlier, like probably 90% of my business is, or more, it's probably more, is all recommendations. People talking to people and telling them about me, people listening to my show and telling their friends to listen to the show, and then coming to me through different contacts. But generally it's word of mouth. So ask your friends for recommendations as well. Like if you're thinking, I don't know what's good for me, I don't know what to do, go talk to some people. I bet the chances are, somebody who knows some coaches who knows some coaches. Chances are pretty high. And if you don't, you can connect with me and we can see if we're a fit, and then I can send you out into the world and check out some other things. So I have about a minute and a half or 2 minutes left. I just want to give you a few other tips and tools to look for personality wise, maybe in your coach, because these are some qualities that I look for. Is I like somebody who's like enthusiastic, who brings joy to the conversation, somebody who can communicate in a way that I understand. So I've heard people say you want a good communicator as a coach, but I would say you would like somebody who can communicate in a language that works for you. Now, whether that's in actual language that works for you, or whether that's in words that you connect with, that resonate for you. Also having somebody that you feel open to, that you'll be willing to work with, so that you're willing to be vulnerable with, somebody that you trust, and somebody who's present. Like if you have a coach who's like daydreaming, or it's all about them, that's not such a great coach. So have somebody who's with you, present with you, even if you're crying, they're just sitting, being present with you, letting you be in your stuff. And somebody who's observant, who will notice little tips and things that come out of your own mouth, because that for me is one of the greatest fun things, is that people half the time don't even realize what they're saying and they're actually giving me the information. They'll say something, I'm like, haha, there's our clue. So keep these in mind.
Thank you
when
for
you're looking
listening
a
to The
coach.
Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.